Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from LastCar.info on a special edition of Behind the Wall, the post-race show that comes on after the race. And thank you so much for tuning in to this special late-night edition of the show here. This is from our hotel room, about 10 minutes away from the racetrack here. We got back about a little while ago here, and just summing up the race action from here, and honestly, still digesting it, as I'm sure many of you are here as well. So thank you for tuning in here a bit late. If you're watching this the next day there, certainly understandable there. It's about, let's see, I guess it's 11:30 local time here in Avondale here, just outside the track. Wow. I mean, just a really strange, strange way that all this played out. I believe on last week's show, before we packed up there, following the Martinsville weekend, I predicted that this was going to be, a pretty emotional weekend coming into this, where you had two drivers in Connor Zilisch and Corey Heim that had so thoroughly dominated this season, and in Zilich's case, overcame two very serious injuries, one of which honestly almost made me throw up when it first happened, which was his fall at Watkins Glen in Victory Lane. And then on top of that, a Cup Series championship where maybe there wasn't quite as clear of a front runner, but Denny Hamlin seemed to be largely the sentimental favorite, although Chase Briscoe had a pretty good claim to that as well for his hometown watching the finish of it there. I still think it was a little unprepared for exactly how it turned out. Certainly late race cautions, not anything that certainly hasn't happened in NASCAR before. The championship, just the way it all played out, it's, I'm still going to be, kind of rambling here a little bit, rather than our usual, trajectory here. I mean, my goodness. I think, probably rather than starting at the beginning, we'll start at the end here. I mean, I got down to, there's a lot of back and forth, as usually there is. And actually, the last place battle was very competitive. And I'll certainly be talking about the last place action for all three series here on tonight, and a little bit of the ARCA West here as well. So settle in, folks. We'll have some more there. I don't have the trivia machine with me here on this, but I do have a bit of show and tell here for you guys as well. So we'll jump into that there as well. I know some of you are noticing one object there, and oh yes, we'll be getting into that here in a little bit too. So yeah, I mean, I was, oh gosh, yeah, where to begin? We were debriefing about this, a little bit earlier here, and it's still a little challenging. So Ryan Blaney had the win. Larson has the championship. This about 2 hours ago, finally confirmed by technical inspection that they've cleared inspection, so the win and the championship are locked up. This after the extensive engine teardown and all that. First 2/3 of the race kind of focusing on the last place battle, and then about the last 75 laps, I was down over by Denny Hamlin's pit stall, where most people were. I think I didn't really look at that much at the pit road there, at the closing stages of the race there, but from the sheer depth of how many people were there, it looked like, 90% of the people that had pit access were clustered around that number 11 pit box. So many, in fact, that when the caution came out, when William Byron blew a tire and hit the outside wall, and no fault of his own, of course, the pit crew actually had to shoo people away from where the tires were to try to get ready and do another pit stop. I mean, they were pretty much not quite loading up, but pretty close to doing so at that point. And counting down the laps, it's like, okay, 10 laps, and it's 5 laps. And then all of a sudden that just happening. It's just, I guess if you're a Toronto Blue Jays fan, you already know how things turned out after that very hard fought World Series there just last night there. And from there it was just a nightmare. I mean, they come down pit road. It sounded like from the MRN radio, and again, correct me because I haven't listened to the TV broadcast yet, so I don't know if they reported on this. It sounded like, because I was standing next to the guy, one of the reporters for MRN, and I heard him say that Hamlin took on scuffed tires at the end, and I know Larson took 2, so he got ahead of him there, and then Hamlin was all the way back in like 10th spot there, and then you have the late race restart, and then Denny Hamlin doesn't win the championship, and Larson does, and you have Keselowski and Preece up there on old tires and shuffling up the order. You know, it's we've already heard about the championship format probably changing next year, and you know there were some that were crowing about this format after Corey Haim's heroics in Friday's race, but any goodwill that came from that is most thoroughly gone. You know, coming down. You know, I usually don't follow like what's happening at the front of the field, but I mean everybody was following this story. It was a big thing all weekend. It seemed like he was getting, you know, Hamlin that is, was getting a ton of media exposure from this, and one way or the other, you know, you had a sense that it was going to be, you know, a pretty big moment, and yeah, it just came down to it, and it looked like it was going to happen, and it was close to it. And you know, there was some cheers when Larson won the championship there for a bit. But it didn't really, you know, last about that at all. Like it was very, within just a few seconds, maybe about 30 seconds afterwards, you know, everybody was all ready to, you know, sprint out there and celebrate with the team and stuff like that, and understandable. And I was, you know, that was in the back of my mind too. I've been reluctant to do that when Daniel Hemrick pulled off that dramatic win in the Xfinity Series championship race a few years ago. And, you know, everybody else was running out there, and I was like, can I do that? I don't know. I don't want to get in the way of somebody's shot. But, you know, I knew that, you know, if something really dramatic happened this weekend, especially given the fact that, you know, it's not going to be at Phoenix and we're not doing elimination rounds probably next year, I was going to try to do that. And I think a lot of people that were in that group were kind of thinking the same thing. And it was very weird. You know, the cars, you know, rolled by. You hear Larson doing his donuts in the background and all that stuff. And, you know, the cars file in, and by the time the brakes squeaked on Hamlin's car, you could hear a pin drop. Like, I mean, I tweeted about that, and it's no exaggeration. It was dead quiet. And it just, from there, it just became this kind of funereal atmosphere about that. And again, whether you're a Denny Hamlin fan or not, or anything like that, I mean, you get a guy that leads, what was it, 280 of the laps? What was the margin here? 208 of the laps, excuse me, of the 319 in the race there. Just a brutal situation there. And of course, you know, everybody's swarming around him and interviewing him and interviewing the crew. And and this part here was a little bit reminiscent of when we were there for Kevin Harvick's retirement. And, you know, everybody, you know, every move he made, you know, the group kind of would shuffle with him and kind of go back and forth. And this much, you know, very much in the same case here too. And then you had some of the fans that were lined up by the fence. I took a couple of pictures of that there. You know, they were cheering him on and stuff like that. But I mean, it was rough. It was really rough. You know, you got the sense that, you know, well, I mean, it was just a mess. It was just a mess. And it was entirely the kind of mess that the playoff system is designed to do. You know, those lights being bright that we're hearing and all this. And, yeah, just a real, it was really, really unfortunate. It shouldn't have happened. And everybody seemed to sense that, even if they weren't entirely familiar with the format. Talking with Lastbro here as well. I mean, he had a discussion with some other people that were watching it that just were completely mystified as to what the process was, even in a winner-take-all race, and what role the other drivers had or what the stages were or anything. You know, it's that level of you know, challenge where it just doesn't work anymore. And, you know, and we saw this to an extent, certainly in Saturday's race too, with Jesse Love pulling off the Xfinity win, Connor Zilic being defeated in that, at least in that one there, it was a long green flag stretch to the end. And, you know, Love really kind of working his way up there and really putting it to him. And then, yeah, I mean, Almirola getting up there too. But yeah, the Hamlin one is a very difficult swallow, and then yeah, you compound it with his history to this point. I mean, heck, to me, 2010 doesn't feel that long ago, where he led a lot of laps in this same Phoenix race when it was the next to last race of the year, ran out of gas, got over to Homestead, spun on the backstretch, twisted the splitter, and it just wasn't a factor. And then Jimmy Johnson won his 5th straight championship. You know, and we heard about, you know, how, you know, he's gone to sports therapy, sports psychotherapy and stuff since then. And, you know, I don't, you know, make light of that, because I know that, you know, from even my own limited athletic experience in the past, so much of it is mental. It's a massive difference there. And I think Denny, much like Bubba Wallace, has been pretty upfront about, you know, handling that mental aspect of the sport there. And undoubtedly, given the emotions that we saw out of him back at Las Vegas when he punched his ticket into the Final Four there, and yeah, what's going on with his father? I'm seeing the comments here about that too. Very, you know, relevant in that aspect of it there too. It's just rough. It's just rough. And part of this is inevitable in sports. I think probably to try and digest this a little bit easier. Again, and kind of comparing it to what happened in the World Series yesterday. Not to make another comparison with stick and ball, but in this case, it's pretty relevant. Winning isn't normal. It's not. Most of the time you lose, and sometimes you lose really, really badly. I think that, competitors in any sport recognize that, and there's always the risk of that happening, and certainly fans of the sport really recognize that. What makes this one so much more distasteful, though, is that it's entirely a product of this playoff system and how it was set up there. If you had a full season championship, and somebody put together a great season, it's not going to be all ruined in the last race. If they built up a great points lead and maybe clinched it with a couple races to go, which is not the big boogeyman that everybody tries to make it out to be, because, again, a large percentage of those championships, even they were settled in the last race, maybe even then with just 2 drivers in it. But again, that's pretty easy to follow, even compared to the championship 4 these days. This was, there was, you're thinking back to just being on pit road there, there was shock, certainly, and there was, sadness, undoubtedly. I mean, my God, there were members of that crew that were just absolutely in tears, and it got real dark there and that kind of led into the shock, and then that kind of permeated everybody that was kind of reporting on it there too, and then it was just anger. You could just see it. You could see it in everybody's face there. It's just messed up. It's messed up. And he's not the first casualty of this, and I don't want to make it entirely about Denny, but, of course, yeah, it's the latest example of this. And NASCAR Man History, I believe, posted a great video yesterday on Twitter that was showing about the other examples that we've seen. Remember when Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick dominated the 2020 season, and Chase Briscoe that same year was dominating Xfinity and was a wonderfully emotional story for what he was going through. I mean, it wasn't wonderful what was happening behind the scenes, but, showing him overcome that was a tremendous story. And yet, none of them winning the championship because they had an off week at Phoenix, or they didn't perform well enough in the round of 8. And just because of that arbitrary element, they didn't even compete for the championship, never mind win it. In those cases. And other examples, Byron certainly knows that from his Truck Series championship bid that was curtailed when he was driving for Kyle Busch. It's rough. And I think this weekend definitely had the potential of being something where, on the one hand, NASCAR could point at it and say, oh, look, the drivers that should have won, they won it anyway. If you probably had a weekend here where, you get Zilich and Heim and arguably Hamlin, although it still feels like, Hamlin wasn't necessarily the most dominant driver, but, even for the crowd reaction, it seemed like, he's one that I'd say between him and Briscoe were probably, would have been, pretty popular picks. Byron debatably, but, again, Byron winning the regular season championships, persuasive too. But if there was that outcome, probably the best argument you could make at that point is like, well, it shouldn't have been this complicated to just get the same outcome that a regular season championship would do. Not necessarily that you would win the most races to do it, because that's sometimes not been enough either. But again, just having something that's a bit more equitable at the same time. But it's boy, I mean, this was certainly too far. This weekend. And again, not just Denny, it applies to Zilich as well. I mean, Zilich is again, mentioning his injuries from this year and what he overcame and how in his unprecedented top 5 streak, I mean, just relentless consistency and basically and also like how good that team was. The fact that team didn't even win the Owners' Championship. No, I don't give a flying crap about who wins the Owner Championship in general. And, it's kind of nice having Almirola do it after how his first tenure at Joe Gibbs ended. But I mean, that 88 car, you put anybody in that, and it was a winner. Even, Kyle Larson driving in relief for him at Charlotte and winning out there. Or I'm sorry, I guess that was Texas after Talladega. And then Parker Kligerman, of course, in the substitution role at Daytona. Just tremendous efforts there for that team, and they don't even have that to show for it. I mean, Junior did a very admirable job trying to put a smiley face on that as best he can, even though now, too, in these last few years, he's had 3 of his cars at JR Motorsports go for the championship, only to, leave empty-handed against the one that was driving for another team. That's a tough pill to swallow. And it's hard to read, I'm jumping around a bit here, but it's all, connected. I mean, the Zilich loss, I think for him personally, it seems like Zilich is always, pretty lighthearted and joking around. We saw that clip last week with Sam Mayer and, him kind of, messing around with the people that were the security that was standing by and all that. And, him and Jesse Love, playing off each other and stuff like that. But, it's a rough deal, and I have no doubt that, at least for Zilich, once he gets full-time in Cup for this next year here with Trackhouse, and he's going to be tough. And I've loved seeing him be very competitive and very strong this year. And, this is an unfortunate setback, but again, it's the kind of thing that, could ignite even more spectacular things for him when he gets into a Cup car there. I'm already thrilled about, seeing him compete at the road courses there for what happened, with him and Van Gisbergen this year in the Xfinity Series. So if we see more of that in the Cup Series, that's going to be something there too. But of course, then that you contrast that with Hamlin and, a driver that, is in the later years of his career. A lot of what he was saying about, it's way too early to judge, what he may or may not do coming up here and what the future may hold for him. In the Cup Series here and with Joe Gibbs Racing and so forth. But, undoubtedly that's going to have an effect on him there. Where does he go from here? I mean, hell, I really don't know. But it's it's rough. It's rough. And I don't mean to start things off on a low note here, but it's the elephant in the room, and I don't want it to be a cloud over everything else on this. So if there is any vindication from this, it's undoubtedly that this playoff format has completely run its course. We saw warnings of this many times, not just with champions who were denied their championship, but absurdities along the way during the season where people get upset if there's a first-time winner because they're like, oh, they're not going to do anything with the playoff format. I mean, that's absurd. Winning a Cup race is one of the most difficult things that any motorsports competitor can do. And if you're Harrison Burton or Shane Van Gisbergen or somebody like that, you should be celebrated just as much, if not more so, than the guys that are expected to win every week. And then other elements of it too, where drivers that make the Final Four necessarily aren't the best 4 drivers all season, or it doesn't help anymore to win races than it ever did before. And things can be taken away very easily, and then mix in the overtime restarts and so forth. And then you have a situation like with Austin Dillon at Richmond last year, where he was already dominating the race and none of all that stuff needed to happen. And then he goes on and wins Richmond this year. It's just a mess. And, people are going to have, some people in NASCAR are going to have a very, very hard time reconciling this, but they need to understand that a lot of the things that they want could be accomplished very easily through a full season championship. I still maintain that the 36 race format, the full season title, the championship itself should be a mountain hidden in the clouds. You should not be able to see the summit from victory lane at the Daytona 500. You shouldn't. There shouldn't be guarantees of anything. That's always something that I've not been a massive fan of here. It's the same reason I'm not a big fan of the charter system, even though a lot of people sing its praises about the sponsorship model and everything. I think it's honestly about as much of a crutch in this sport as the restrictor plate has been. But having these guarantees in the sport, it's a business, and it's a difficult business. And honestly, we're seeing some more. We've seen a lot more discussion of that this week too, with the discovery in the court case here as well. Again, wandering around here a bit, but bear with me. It's we need to get more comfortable with this, and we need to treat a full season championship with the same respect that we have a race that finishes under green. I mean, my goodness, if we had that today, we have a 40 lap run under green to the end. And things just play out and people's tires wear out and maybe they just, they don't draw the right strategy or something. That's the way it plays out. And the person that's up front is able to pull off the championship, and that's the way that it should be. Shouldn't come down to one race, but if it naturally progresses that way, but that's the reason things like the 92 Hooters 500 stand out so much in memory. And this race here, who knows how it's going to be remembered? Certainly, more infamously for what all took place there. So, it's disappointing. It's frustrating. It definitely left. It was about as much, no, I don't want to say that. That's not a fair comparison. It was definitely it was definitely somber afterwards. It was very noticeable. And again, still coming to terms with it. It's going to be very interesting to see what comes up these next couple days. I would be very, very surprised if somebody doesn't come out and leak the announcement of the championship format change tomorrow before anybody else. I have no bearing on if that's going to happen. I don't know anything personally there, but I'm sure NASCAR's trying to do everything in their power to hold back that tide as best they can. But the way that Zilich's championship, and then, again, not a guarantee to stay consistent with what I said. Even winning all those races doesn't guarantee you the championship, but it should at least put you in a favorable enough position that maybe you could clinch it earlier. And that would be, the way that it plays out. And again, going back to my original point on that, that's something we also need to become more comfortable with. I mentioned it as being a boogeyman earlier, and that's true, because they always they had that segment that always plays during the MRN broadcast where it's like, oh, these other sports have playoffs, and, we can't have a championship end before the last race. That would be terrible. It's like, well, no, there's other sports that just deal with it. I mean, if you don't, even other motorsports that are comfortable with it, I mean, you're really going to have a problem with Formula One, for example. 2021 is going to happen every single year, and that's why it got as much attention as it did before, of course, how it played out there. There's going to have to be a culture change in this sport. And, there was enough, anger and almost just people just coping with it, honestly. I mean, pretty much every driver that was getting, or any personality that was getting interviewed, and I wasn't in the main interview room. I was in the PR room next door, but I could hear over the speaker the conversations. It seemed like every person that got in there was being asked about, Denny Hamlin and feeling bad for him, and it's like they were asking Larson about it and asking Briscoe about it. And then you had William Byron there too, just, apologizing to Hamlin in the media center. And, I wasn't there live for that part of it. I was out in the garage area kind of picking things up, and I went back over to the door as Byron and Briscoe were coming out from their championship four, kind of held the door open. Briscoe seemed a bit more relaxed. I think from how many missteps that his team had in the race, he probably was more comfortable with it's probably just not going to happen today. But Byron looked really upset, almost embarrassed a bit, but just angry, and frustrated that, his blown tire was what caused that. And of course he had no control over that, trying to limp around there and get the best run he can. And then it just lets go. And we do know from a lot of the reports that, drivers were very aggressive and their teams were very aggressive with tire pressures. And I was amazed how fast everybody was at the beginning. In particular, the tightness of the pack and the speed was very noticeable, and it was strange to see, because that this is not any different of an aero package, and I'm sure it was tires similar to what they had over at Martinsville, because you can see the rubber kind of smear and pile up behind the fenders on the cars like we saw last week. But yeah, they were so fast at the beginning. Even Casey Mears, who was struggling tremendously after about 3 laps, the handling just completely went to hell. and he was just hanging on, dropped to the back of the pack, lost laps early, was just trying to stay out of traffic, and then had a brake caliper issue there on pit road with some brake fluid leaking out of the car and kind of kick-starting the last car battle there at the same time. It was very aggressive out there, and it wasn't just the front of the pack; it was the whole field was very tight. The first couple laps, I don't know, I know I recorded portions of it on my phone, but I don't know if I got the full opening 10 laps or so there, but it was very, very tight for a bit. I don't know how well it showed up on camera because again, I haven't watched the broadcast yet. But that was very noticeable there too. And of course we had a whole series of tire failures. I'm not willing to be as critical of Goodyear because I'm not as familiar with the mechanics involved in all that. Again, the reports were that people were just being very aggressive with low air pressures, and that ended up playing a direct role in this too. I mean, pretty much all the championship contenders had that problem at one point or another. It could have very easily ended their day, and it's kind of remarkable that it didn't. I mentioned earlier, the comparisons to the old Phoenix, where you had brake heat was always a big issue, similar to kind of like at a Martinsville or something, and a tire would cut down, and the car would just immediately zip into the wall, and there'd be a whole lot of damage to those cars, and especially in a time where they didn't have the safer barrier, those were some very hard hits, too, very comparable to a track like, a New Hampshire or something. Thankfully in this case, with rare exception, unfortunately, your last place finisher today, and AJ Allmendinger had very much a different experience there with a flat tire that sent him into the wall in the exact same way that it happened to him in practice and sent him to a backup car. And now we know from the post-race inspection that now Allmendinger has become the first driver in the history of the NASCAR Cup Series to finish last in the first points-paying race of the season, excluding the duels, and the last one of that same season. So again, race one of the Daytona 500 today in Phoenix. That element there, the same thing. So, again, there was so much going on that was, kind of scrambled into all this to try to make this as wild of an outcome as it can. And they got what they wanted. But at what cost? That's always the question. It's another one of those, experiences here. So a lot of people leaving pretty unhappy. There was a lot of comments yesterday about the Xfinity Series garage being a bit frosty afterwards. And I've always noticed it's always kind of felt that way, but I always felt like it was more like that kind of, day before graduation kind of feel where they kind of sinks in. It's the last race of the year and they don't have to rush quite as much. Some do, but some don't. They just kind of hang out. So it's always a little bit more familial. I've always find the culture in the Xfinity Series very warm in general. It feels much closer to the way the Cup Series garage used to be when you had large entry lists, closer to what we have in the Xfinity Series these days. This time around was certainly a bit more, agitated and people seem to be rushing to kind of load up a bit quicker. Of course, you saw the footage there of Tommy Joe Martins having a bit of a shouting match there with one of his crew chiefs there. And again, the video was posted there afterwards of, just there being some kind of a conflict there over tires, apparently. But in the Cup garage, yeah, even more so. By the time I got to the Cup garage after, kind of observing the Hamlin deal, pretty much everybody was loaded up. And I think Casey Mears was probably one of the only drivers that was still, there. And yeah, he was, I don't know. He was pretty agitated on the radio at the beginning, but I was pretty surprised they were able to get as far as they could afterwards because it sounded like they were just completely out to lunch at the beginning. But Carl Long and the Garage 66 effort, they did a great job keeping him out there, and they ended up finishing ahead of some pretty high-powered rides there at the end of the day there, too. So, it wasn't frosty in the Alpha Prime pit stalls. Yeah, I see that there, Scott. Yeah, exactly. A bit of a different story there, too. But, it's a weird one. It's a weird one. This does feel like, it's like, oh, we gone too far in a few places. It's gone a little too far. So, that seems to be the consensus. I'm sure there's people that would disagree. But we'll see where things go in there from, that at the same time. Let me kind of look at the race results here, pulling this up here at the same time. So Ryan Blaney, your winner here. Again, this confirmed about a couple hours ago with the results of post-race inspection. Brad Keselowski in the second spot, Kyle Larson in third, Joey Logano in fourth. I was just mentioning this earlier. I don't think I even noticed Logano this entire race, so I have no idea how on earth he got fourth, and I don't know how Kyle Busch got fifth. There were some drivers that I just was not watching very closely here. I noticed Austin Cindric was really good at the beginning. He seemed like he defended that third spot quite well after qualifying fourth on the grid there, but unfortunately got some crash damage at the end that dropped him off the pace. Cindric was making several stops at the end of the race, and it looked like it was intentional to actually try to stay out of the way of the championship battle there. I wasn't really listening to his radio, so I don't know if that was communicated to him, but it seemed like that was a direct effect of him coming down there. Of course, the pit road at Phoenix, that kind of J-shaped, hook-shaped pit road there takes up so much of the track surface, you can almost, I guess, use it as a kind of an escape lane there, too, I guess, for the title battle. But regardless, Cindric ends up at the edge of the bottom five there, too. Rest of the top 10 there, Denny Hamlin ends up back in the sixth spot after winning the pole, and again, leading 208 laps. Josh Berry, Michael McDowell, Ryan Preece, and Chase Elliott rounding out your top 10. McDowell in the Tide car, great effort for him, and a significant brand activation for the Tide brand this weekend. I hope you guys enjoyed the tweet that I posted there the other night. I felt bad about not including their names for the workers there as well. I didn't want to depersonalize them there at the same time, but I was kind of hoping maybe the track would pick it up and they'd say, "Oh yeah, we work with this company that does the painting for us, and these guys do a great job." Maybe something that would happen, but I don't know if that did. As far as I saw, I didn't see anything like that. But yeah, I was impressed with the work they did. I thought that was pretty fun branding there, and I kind of followed that along on the way out of the track here just tonight. The way that looked there too. So I thought that was pretty hip. Hopefully it's something, I don't know if that's something that's going to become more permanent, that we're going to see other sponsors, use that kind of removable paint and, decorate that portion of the pit road, but maybe that'll be something, down the line there too. One other driver I expected to be really competitive in this Cup race too, was Christopher Bell. Last Bro and I were talking about the fact that, one element that is admittedly kind of intriguing with this format, the current playoff format, is that when you get guys that do not make the championship four, but probably were highly expected to, you really can have a situation where maybe these guys just have like tremendously competitive Phoenix cars that they've been working on for weeks, months, or, maybe even longer. And they just kind of have it at the back of the shop, and it's like, well, we're not going to not run it because probably by next year it's going to be completely out of date. Ryan Blaney, I guess, had that, at least, getting the 20 laps led that he worked out in this race here to pull off the victory. Again, same thing with Logano. And, Penske cars in general, I mean, they've just had this format in their back pocket, much like Jimmy Johnson had the original 10-race format, and, that very much continued here with Blaney's win, Logano's fourth place finish, and Cindric's strong first stage. That was certainly something to see there at the same time. But, yeah, I didn't see as much out of Bell as I kind of expected in this one here. In fact, it shows here they didn't even lead any laps, so there was that element there, too. Daniel Suarez gets 19th in his final start for Trackhouse Racing. I don't know if anybody captured him getting out of the car there or anything like that. That's the kind of story I would ordinarily follow up on there, but by the time I got back to the garage area there, they were pretty much just loaded up at that point there. Austin Dillon just behind him in the 20th spot there, one of the other drivers that caught a flat tire at one point. We'll go into the last car battle here as well. And a little bit of a kind of merge in our show and tell portion here today. I don't really have the trivia machine with me. I think I mentioned that already, but we'll probably do some show and tell here to kind of fill the gap here as well. So if you're into that, we'll bring that segment back. I apologize for the squawking here behind me. I've got the hotel chair here, and I think it's probably hasn't been oiled here in probably a little bit. But yeah, so the with the results of post-race inspection, I guess we can go ahead and bring this out here, that AJ Allmendinger has locked up the 2025 LASCAR Cup Series Championship. I did produce all of these certificates just like I did the last couple of years, but I did not distribute them. That was already going to be the plan going into it. I feel like that kind of ran its course, and certainly with the way this race played out and for how much AJ Allmendinger in particular struggled in this one, I'm glad I came to that realization before this, because I interviewed JJ Yaley earlier, and he kind of mentioned the certificates there too, and I was like, no, we're not not really doing that. But I am going to put these up on eBay after we get back home. I got some pictures I took of them at the track with the cars and everything, and it just makes a good illustration of the championship format. Maybe it'll take a different format somewhere down the line. Don't really have any immediate plans for something like that, but that's kind of where that is at the same time. But yeah, we'll look into the LASCAR championship here as well. Coming into this race, it was a 3-car battle between Riley Herbst, who had 4 last place finishes this year, and 2 drivers had 3 last place finishes in AJ Allmendinger, who is the Daytona 500 last placer and most recently finished last at Dover. And then, of course, there was Josh Berry, who started the playoffs by finishing last in 3 consecutive races, first driver to do that. And these were your 3 contenders coming into this week's race. Excuse me. So, basically, the situation was this. Unless Allmendinger and or Berry finished in last place, basically those drivers could take the LASCAR championship as long as Riley Herbst didn't finish in the bottom 5, which in this case was 34th or worse in this race here. I had attempted to talk to Riley Herbst before the race. Believe it or not, I've been pretty supportive of him. I actually talked to him at Fontana back after he got that top 10 finish for Rick Ware Racing there, and congratulated him on the strong run out there when he came out west the week after. And, very fondly remember that race he had for Front Row Motorsports where he should have won Talladega. And even this year, where he has absolutely struggled, and even 23XI kind of seems to forget itself that it had a third team. Even their hero card display had, the 23 and the 45 here, and there's like a few Riley Herbst cards kind of stuck behind him there that are kind of out of view. Like you really have to be looking for them to find them. That kind of seemed to capture the nature of all that this year. But even this season, I remember the summer Atlanta race when he was driving the treetop car. He was right up there and survived the first big accident and was kind of up there and looked like maybe, squeak out a top 10, maybe even a top 5 or something. That unfortunately got in another accident, and that was all she wrote on that. Never been a big fan of the Atlanta Superspeedway, but regardless, it would have been a nice story there at the same time. But yeah, I saw Riley over by his hauler before the race started. It was before the driver intros happened. And I was going to interview him, and he was talking with a friend or something, and I asked him, and he kind of gave me this look, kind of looked up, looked down, and he was like, nah, I don't think so. And I was like, yep, I totally get it. And no, I just kind of moved on from there. But but again, I would have loved to talk to him afterwards. I didn't see him after the race there, but Riley did end up not winning the LASCAR championship this year. AJ Allmendinger got the last place finish after going to a backup car after a hard hit in practice and then crashing in the same spot. He bruised his elbow in the first accident. Second one, it sounded like he was okay, but just very upset, and completely understandably. And the last thing he needed was my goofy butt going over there and talking about him getting the LASCAR championship. I am sure he probably just, got in the car and headed out. And at Phoenix, it seems like that happens quite a bit. It's actually quite hard to get a hold of last place finishers, at least in the Cup Series in particular. I've found it's very rare, unless it's a mechanical issue, and they're kind of working on it there at the same time. Of course, I mentioned before, Allmendinger's issues were kind of preceded a little bit by mechanical issues with Casey Mears. Mears comes back out about 38, 39, or no, it was not that much. It was like 34 laps down, I believe. He was 35 laps down by the finish. And Bubba Wallace came in and lost power earlier. I didn't see, because I was already in the garage when he started having issues. And all of a sudden, I just saw his car pop up, and I was like, what the heck is going on here? And then the team basically rips out the fuel pump from the back of that. They had all these drop claws and shop towels and stuff to take care of the very messy job that it was to do that. and then sent him back out about 80 laps down. And by that point, Allmendinger had wrecked, and Bubba was about 50 laps behind Allmendinger. Mears had already cleared him by that point to get up into the 36th spot, and then Bubba cleared Allmendinger to put the 16 car in last place. And Riley Herbst, in the meantime, for one point, I saw him up there about in the top 10 during a pit sequence there, when there was a caution that came out. And he was around, I think, as high as, after that, about, stabilizing about 17th or 18th. I believe it was 23rd in the finishing order there. But actually kind of one of a, pretty decent run there out of the 35 team there compared to some of the other efforts. So not ending on a low note there for the 35 team over at 23-11, and maybe something they can build on too. I'm sure it, especially after Jimmy Spencer talking smack about him on the junior podcast. I get the frustrations, and undoubtedly, certainly for coming from me, where I'm tracking how many last place finishes he's had. Undoubtedly, he's been struggling, but in some of those cases, it really has been mechanical problems. At Martinsville, he had all kinds of issues. And that was kind of the thing I wanted to talk to him about. I said, man, I hope they figured out what on earth was going on with that car last week, with the brake issues and the steering issues and just anything else that was happening there at the time. But maybe the opportunity will present itself. Some of these drivers, I don't really interact with as much, and maybe just don't understand what my intentions are. But that'll happen, and, that'll work itself out in time, too. And I've been able to kind of cross that bridge with some of them there, and that's been really helpful there at the same time. But that would be another one to look at, and maybe down the road here too. Allmendinger ended up back there, and then Riley Herbst in the 23rd spot, and that has locked up the championship. So I'll be updating the graphic and raising the banner on that. I pretty much have the article for Allmendinger done. There's a couple other stats I want to kind of update in there, so I'll probably post that tomorrow, especially now that we're getting on towards, I guess we're past midnight here over in Arizona. So we'll get that going there. We're going to start heading back tomorrow, and I can kind of catch up on that in the meantime there too. So we'll get the full write-up and catch up on that. The Xfinity and the truck articles are, of course, already on the site, as well as the entry list storylines preview leading into that to kind of get some of those other stories in the meantime. So we did have the certificates. I don't know if I pointed this out here too, but you'll notice I got these little medallion stickers. Whoop, hang on. Live TV, folks. These are my championship scenario sheets here. I had those in the same bundle here, too. But, I found these stickers. I was thinking of getting some custom-made ones with the LASCAR logo, but these ones with the number 1, I think, were good enough on that, so a little bit of extra detail. But if you are interested in those, I'll be putting all those up once we get back home there. And, hang on, we're out of focus. Let's bring that back into focus. Let's bring that in. There we go. Don't want to have that. Nobody needs a headache here in the middle of the night. So we're not going to do that. Let's see here. So looking at the bottom 5 there, AJ Allmendinger in the last place spot after qualifying in last. Not really qualifying. Couldn't qualify because they were still putting the car back together, the backup car, that is. Bubba Wallace, and next to last there, listed out with brake issues. That's kind of interesting on that. I didn't realize he fell out a second time there, and it was undoubtedly they were taking something out of the fuel cell there, and it looked like the fuel pump. So I guess a separate issue there cropping up at the same time. Casey Mears in 36th, Ty Dillon in 35th, and Cindric rounds out your bottom 5 there. Seeing mentioned in the comments there too. I actually spoke to a crew member of a colleague's effort there too. That was just one lap before the end of stage 2. You realize. When Ty Dillon wrecked, they were trying to nurse a flat tire to the end of the stage. Just the gamble didn't work out. Bounced it off the wall. Ended up about 20-odd laps down there in the bottom 5. So it didn't take a big issue to really put you well back in the order here. This race usually has very low attrition. And oftentimes the first car goes to the garage area. It can be like half the race distance. I think when Christopher Bell conked out in this race among the championship 4 a couple of years ago, I mean, I was basically all the way back in the media center again, had to pop back out when he'd fallen out of the race there, too. So that was kind of an unusual situation at the same time. I've just been crushing the waters this week. Man, I will say this. I think I mentioned this on social media. If you need to get your steps in, this Phoenix track is probably one of your best options. It really is. Like if you go out there, it's got so many gates, and I know I've mentioned this before. Trying to get to the infield care center, there's like one path that works. It's like a maze. It's literally. I mean, that just becomes kind of a meme when you describe it, but this is like literally a maze. Like you can go one wrong way and just be in a dead end. They got to double back all the way around and try to get some other angle. I think I walked like, I think it was like 10 miles on the first day. It was like 9 or 10 miles the first day. It was like 12 on Saturday, and then I think 6 today. So it's really, I was wearing out my shoes there on that, but that worked out, pretty well, at least on that end there. But let's see. Anything else from today's race there? I mean, obviously, yeah, the Hamlin thing in the championship format pretty much dominated the day. I mean, we'll see where everybody's stories trend towards, coming up here. As the quote in the bottom here, I mentioned, I think it was Vince Lombardi that said this, that winning isn't everything, but losing sure is nothing. And I think that sums up the results from today's race to an extent, yesterday's race, but again, I think that's offset by Zilich's youth and the fact that there's even greater things to come in his career than just the Xfinity Series. With Dennis, with Denny Hamlin's issues today, I think that, that's another way to, another issue from all that today. Which is a shame. And, again, kind of to put the pin in the Cup Series portion of the show here, it was a solidly competitive race. Again, I was very impressed with the speed at the beginning. The way they were blasting down the backstretch was really interesting. The little bits that I'd seen of the TV broadcast, or at least the feed they were showing us, it looked like people were fanning out and being pretty aggressive. But again, a lot of danger to that with all the flat tires. And undoubtedly that had an effect on, not just the championship 4, but the way the race ended, for that matter. So, as to what the future of this is, knowing that it's not going to be the championship venue next year, but that it is going to be towards the end of the year, where even if it's the 36 race format, it's going to be, probably one of the last couple of gauntlets you have to go through if you're going to try to clinch the championship. So it'll be difficult then. And if it's the 10 race chase, or if it's, 3-3-4 or 4-3-3 or whatever that format is, then it's still going to be in kind of towards the end of that regrouping process as well. Either way, it's going to be a critical venue, one way or the other. And I'll be curious how much of this is going to get adopted into that. Obviously, we got a bit of experimentation next spring, where the Cup Series is going to be doing a companion event with the IndyCar Series and the spring race. But we'll see how all that shakes out there at the same time. And again, that's kind of the frustrating part of it. No, I had some difficulties here in the garage area at the same time. And again, I don't want to be too critical of this, but just kind of a learning process too. You'll notice that I posted the pictures there from Casey Mears going to the garage area, that there was a bit of a gap, and I mentioned I didn't have a photo vest in there, and that was something, I don't know if that's changed. I don't know if any of you other guys here are doing media work there too, but I wasn't aware that was something they did for social media. I always figured if you're going to have everybody that has, everybody has a camera phone in their pocket, I always figured that was on a different scale, but I guess maybe they've changed it this year. We weren't at this event last year. Maybe it changed when we weren't there, but I had to kind of discuss that and make sure I'm, doing things properly there. So that's why there was a segment of it. You didn't see shots of Mears and Bubba Wallace returning to the track. I saw that happen, but having to be a little bit resourceful here with kind of what happened in the garage area in that portion there. Of course, this is, just a minor bump of the road. That's something I got to figure out next time we cover a race out there. I'd hate to take a photo vest for no good reason, but I guess maybe this is something else that, NASCAR's figuring out or something. But we'll see what the story is there too. And luckily, that didn't come up until pretty much the end of the weekend here too. So I'm glad I was able to do my coverage there for the Xfinity, the Truck Series, because there was quite a bit to cover there also. Anyway, I know I'm belaboring this, but I'll go ahead and kind of we'll touch on the Xfinity and the Truck Series races here at the same time, and I'll try to kind of add to this the other details from everything from this week. And again, I got some stuff for show and tell that I'll share again on this. Let's see. I do have my Busch Light that they handed out in honor of the late John Edwards. So Shalonsa here to John. I don't really drink, but I didn't want to not accept the beverage there as well. So we'll keep that in the cooler here in the meantime. But yeah, I mean, it was, you know, the weekend in general. I think it was, you know, it was compelling, but yeah, certainly emotional at the same time. And this kind of leads perfectly into the Xfinity Series race. I mean, Jesse Love, Richard Childress Racing, prevail over 3 junior motorsports entries. And yeah, Eric Almirola gets the NASCAR Owners Championship on a late race, charged their field. Almirola not even entered, excuse me, not even originally, you know, intended to be entered in these last 2 races of the season. And then here he does, he comes out, he had a strong run at Martinsville, strong run here, getting the 2nd place finish on that. I was very impressed with Jesse Love and you know, how well he was able to kind of track down Zilich and get up there. And then once Zilich lost the lead, it just seemed like the parachute came out and he couldn't kind of get back up there and still hang on to the 3rd spot, but just, you know, didn't have, you know, the most dominant car out there. And the most dominant car was Allgaier, who incidentally, at least from the fans at the stands, I saw a lot of people wearing Zilich stuff. Last Pro saw a lot of people wearing Justin Allgaier gear. That seemed to be where the loyalties lay there at the same time. You know, and yeah, it sucks that Zilich won all those races, came back from those injuries, and lost the championship. I mean, I draw kind of a comparison to Davey Allison. Honestly, when the sense that I had, I know personally, when Zilich fell at Watkins Glen reminded me so much of, you know, for just as awful and coming out of nowhere as it was, you know, some of the things that Davey Allison experienced in '92, whether it was getting injured at Bristol from what seemed like a pretty ordinary Bristol-like accident in the spring, you know, and then the terrifying accident that he had over at Pocono, having to have relief drivers too, very much like Zilich this year. You know, for Davey, it was like Dorsey Schrader and Bobby Hillen and those guys, Jimmy Hensley helping him out at Wilkesboro. You know, a lot of, you know, comparisons. And I think that, you know, that on top of his personality, just endeared him to, very much to, you know, a big part of the field. But, you know, unfortunately that damn format is just the other part of it. And it did not reward it there at the end, even if he would have clinched this championship easily well beforehand too. So, you know, again, Jesse Love solid this year, winning Daytona, been very good at the super speedways, picking right up where Sheldon Creed left off in that 2 team. And, you know, I think that they've been on the verge between him and Austin Hill of just being like practically unstoppable at these super speedways. Although there's others like, you know, Jeb Burton that always kind of find themselves in the mix too. But you know, this time around, you know, kind of taking the next step. I did get a chance to talk to Richard Childress briefly this morning and congratulate him on the championship. And I also wanted to thank him for the interview he did for the 500 Days episode on Kevin Harvick's paint scheme back in 2001. He remembered that when I brought it up, so that was really cool. But you know, again, it's tough, and again, I don't find myself as upset about the Zilich one as the Hamlin one, again, because the younger career, but it still sucks. It still sucks because it would have been nice to have, you know, him cap that off and just see what the celebration would be like. And I think he would represent the series very well as a series champion, especially going into next year where it's not going to be the Xfinity Series. It's going to be the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. We've got a whole new branding and trying to figure all that out. And on that note also, I mean, kudos to Xfinity as well. You know, I think that when we move forward from here, I think the Xfinity Series it should be remembered as the renaissance of NASCAR's like second tier, of bringing back both a mix of maybe drivers that are closer to kind of career Xfinity guys like Jeremy Clements and Ryan Sieg, who incidentally both started all the Xfinity Series races since the sponsor came on board, and developing new talent. You know, that's why we can talk about guys like Brad Perez, guys like Ryan Vargas, Guys like Nick Leitz and some of these other guys coming up there as well. And then people from different disciplines, guys like Patrick Emmerling from the modified ranks. It's really good to be able to develop this. When I think of the Nationwide series, I think of the Kyle Busch show. I think of the Cup dominance of it. Even though that started in the Busch series era, it really became so ingrained in the Nationwide era that the series just stalled out. And those are awful races. And I hardly watched any of them, really. That was kind of back when I started doing the LASCAR site in 2009, 2010. And I started doing the articles there on the Xfinity, but really it wasn't until like about 2013, 2014 that I did those articles, any more, development or really watch those races closely. And part of that was the Start and Park era for sure, because, really you had Jeff Green dominating all those championships and not being able to really say too much more about one run versus another. But slowly but surely things kind of stabilized there, and we started having some really interesting competitors. And, one of the things that I've always enjoyed, certainly these last couple of years, is the never-ending pursuit of both Sheldon Creed and Ryan Sieg trying to get their first win. I think that has been such a fascinating story to me. And I know that I believe it was LE Productions did his video on Sheldon Creed there and kind of talking about his struggles there as well. I think that's always something that I know Les Pro and myself, we always kind of watch and just see if these guys can ever break through. I mean, Creed's is stupendous with the number of second place finishes he's had in his career. But that was definitely another part to look at it there too. And then this race here made things really interesting with Sam Mayer's suspension from driving the number 41 car, the Haas factory team. It was a matter of like, okay, who's going to take his place? And it was pretty surprising when the news came out that it was going to be Ryan Sieg driving the 41, especially for how strong Sieg has been in his own entry. I figured of course they're going to get a Ford guy, but I kind of figured they're going to have Cole Custer do double duty. Maybe he just didn't want to do that, but it seemed like that was going to be the most obvious choice, especially the fact that Custer won an Xfinity Series championship with what was, Stewart-Haas Racing. Again, different strategies there. But I'm glad they gave Sieg the chance at it there, and it also opened a tremendous opportunity for Kyle Sieg, who at one point actually passed Ryan on the track in his old car. And Kyle Sieg is a tremendous talent too. He should have won a couple of races by this point. Very good at Talladega a couple of years ago. He's very low key. He's a little less chatty, I would say, than Ryan Sieg is. Ryan is an interesting personality in his own right, but Kyle's a bit more intense, I would say, than Ryan is. Not to say Ryan doesn't have intensity, because certainly he's had some absolute dogfights out there trying to pull off his first win too. They make a formidable duo there, and I think we saw that with Kyle having a good run there and ultimately finishing 12th in the SciAps car. And this leads me to the last car battle here at the same time. This was a really weird one. In the very beginning of this race, we saw some issues for Dawson Cram, driving Mike Harmon's car out there, and the back of the field losing a lap at the beginning. And I was kind of tracking that, and I have no idea how I completely missed Jeb Burton bouncing off the wall and coming down pit road. I will say this. It did seem it was unusually noisy in that Xfinity race. I know that sounds weak as an excuse, but it's honestly true. I had a much easier time being able to tell what anybody was saying on the radio during today's race than I did during Saturday's Xfinity race. And I don't know who, if any of you guys were at the track here this weekend, if you guys had a similar experience, definitely let me know. But that was certainly the case for me. And I must have just been tweeting something and just didn't see when the 27 came in. And he was pitted like halfway around the pit road, so I didn't see him when they were doing the work either. And then all of a sudden the car gets towed to the garage area and they're done. And just a rough situation and a bizarre situation because, as I pointed out in the article, the only two retirees from this race, very kind of similar to what we saw today, very, very low attrition, were the 27 and the 41, the exact same two cars that got involved in the accident after the checkered flag at Martinsville and the tangle there between Sam Mayer and Jeb Burton. Mayer, of course, suspended this week. I think that was the right call. I'm reluctant to lean into that too much because I do think these drivers should be allowed to show personality. They should be able to, they shouldn't be punished for their aggression out there within reasonable limits. I think, and I don't remember if I said this last week, but I think if Sam Mayer just spun Jeb Burton after the finish and he wasn't spun into traffic and he certainly didn't hit the wall with the driver's side, I'm not sure if the same penalty would have happened. But if it's like something like a right hook like that and it just spinning the guy into the wall and, it could be a serious injury. And Martinsville is no joke either in that. I mean, you can definitely still get seriously hurt at any of these tracks for the speeds and the restrictions and the safety measures that are in place. It can be very serious out there. So I'm glad the NASCAR took it seriously. I hate it for Mayer because I will admit a bias that I do like the Haas Factory team. I thought from beginning to end, they were fascinating to follow this year. I'm sad they're going from Ford to Chevy because I think that was part of their unique appeal. I like the idea that there was this little remaining piece of the Stewart-Haas effort and try to keep that flame alive and maybe rebuild it into something new and even more bold out there. I was hoping there would be a long-term relationship with Ford, but I guess clearly they see something different out there in Chevy. And that's a bit disappointing to me because the Busch Series has always had a disproportionately high number of Chevrolet teams. I don't exactly know why that's the case. It was one of the many reasons I was never a big fan of them because I always liked the Pontiacs as a kid. And they would have like maybe one or two Pontiacs in the Busch Series. It'd be like Rodney Combs, maybe like Buckshot Jones or something. And that would probably be it. It's like, man, I need there's the aesthetics of the sport has always been very critical to me, and I kind of attach that in the same respect there. But I'm dodging around the the other elephant in this very room that we'll be discussing here at the same time. So Ryan Sieg in the top 10, got 10th in stage 2. Looked like he was going to be able to have a good finish out there in the 41 car. Didn't have a winning pace. I spoke with one team member that seemed to indicate that if he had more time to test with this team than just the half a week, since basically he was announced as being their driver, maybe they'd be able to really make something happen. But again, guys like Allgaier, the championship guys, especially Allgaier and Zilich, and then certainly Jesse Love, were just too tough to beat. And that was just going to be too tough of a situation for any of those guys out there. But an unfortunate bump from Christian Eckes going into the corner. Eckes very up front afterwards, talked with Ryan Sieg there about it. Didn't get too heated between them, but obviously it was not a situation that Sieg was happy about for getting a chance to run in a very top flight effort. A factory effort, I guess you could really say here, from this brand, and having a good, trying to get a good run out there. But unfortunately, he got spun out, backed into the outside wall, utterly destroyed the rear clip. I did not make it to the garage area right when he fell out of the race there. And incidentally, this is another aspect of the Xfinity race that I thought was pretty interesting there at the same time. Big shout out to the folks over at Cope Family Racing, Derek and Alicia Cope there. I was kind of walking up and down pit road, and I was just kind of taking a load off there, sitting in one of their fold-out chairs. Again, big thanks to them. As always, for being able to write Derek's biography. It was a tremendous honor. I really enjoyed putting that together, and working on that. Since then, every time I go over to these races, I know that, the Xfinity Series, if I need to, sit in one of their chairs or something like that, I'm able to do that. But this one, they actually had some sponsor of course, they always have sponsor representatives and stuff. But their sponsor reps wanted to go up to the press box there and watch the race. So they had a couple of extra seats, and they just said, hey, you want to come up here and watch some of the race? So basically for the last, you get an offer like that, you don't say no. And they have offered that before, to be clear. Usually I'm just so busy and I'm in the garage area, I can't really take them up on it. But this was, the special race, the championship format. I got up there and, hung out with a couple of their sponsor reps and got to know them. Just had a great time. I saw a great view of the front stretch because what was great was their stall was right next to Zilich's. So Zildjian was right next to us, and we could see every time the pit stop. I think that there was some family member that was up in the box that was like cheering him on as he kept going by and stuff, and that was really cool. Great view. I've never sat on top of a pit box before in that section there. I'm no VIP in my estimation there, but that was really cool. I got a good view from there. I was there for pretty much just the last stage of the Xfinity Series race, but it gave me a wonderful view of just how aggressive the drivers get through the dog leg. You can see it pretty well at ground level from the infield, but from an elevated position, you can really see how much the car's like balance gets upset going into the dog leg and then trying to transition back up. And you see which drivers are particularly aggressive going into that corner. One who really stood out to me in the Xfinity race was Joey Gase. I think there was about 3 or 4 times that I saw him at the very bottom of like a 3 or 4 wide battle. And he was having some impressive runs out there. So that was definitely, one part of the story that was kind of tracking there at the same time. So, so again, big thanks to the Cope Family Racing and to Derek and Alicia there for inviting me up there and being able to have, kind of an alternative view of what was happening there at the end of that. I think I got some footage there. I'll probably do something with that. So stay tuned for some more on that at the same time. But, and actually I got up there just before Leland Honeyman spun out. And what was crazy is you really got a sense of like how wide that turn 3 to 4 complex is short of the line, because he kind of lost control just from the outside periphery here, and he spun directly like all the way almost to like as far as I can see to the left and managed to not hit the wall. It just shows like how far you're actually sliding in that case. And, pretty amazing. And actually there's another time about 6 laps to go that we almost did have a caution at the end of that Xfinity Series race where, it looked like Honeyman was going to lose control, and then he actually was able to get that thing pointed right. So it was a pretty much a madcap effort there at the same time for the Xfinity Series deal. But that was a cool experience, and being able to check that out there too. But, again, mentioning the Xfinity Series and how, quickly everybody loaded up after the race, it did seem to wrap up pretty quickly there, too. And as it wrapped up, drivers and teams were loaded up. The Sieg car was still on jack stands, and they were ripping pretty much all the bodywork off the rear of the car. And very reminiscent to what we had back at Talladega. They were leaving a whole lot of it behind. And this was again, I don't usually pick up a lot of sheet metal here, but this year has been a very unusual one in picking up a couple there. And as you can see behind me, I do have a piece here, so I'm going to step away here, and I'm going to pull it up, and I'll show you what I got here. So hang on here, folks. Actually, let me cut away. I'll do a brief loading screen here, and then I can make sure I'm in the shot, and you don't have to see me stumble around my hotel room here. So stay tuned, folks. I will be right back. Okay, folks, here we go. And let's see if I can get this in the shot a little better. And there you go. Oh, okay, it's a little close to the shot here. This is the entire, right rear. Yeah, I guess the right rear assembly here off of this. And the SciAps logo on the bottom of it. I have some pictures of this here at the same time. They had about 3 pieces of this, including the rear bumper with the headlight piece there in the back, and another one with, it was like a piece of the fender. And I'm sure some other people picked those up too, because I saw they were gone already. But I'm glad I picked this up when I did, because I couldn't get back into the Xfinity garage after during inspection there. But they always say, like with some of this debris, that it's always good to have some signifier on there, so it's pretty clear which race it was from. But yep, this is there you can see that SciAps logo on the bottom there. Yeah, it very clearly came from that 41 car, and it got twisted pretty good. You can see on the side here a little bit of the rear piece. You got the blue paint on the back of it there from the wall. And let's see here. You can see how bent up it is already, but you can see it even more on the back side here. Yeah, it doesn't really show too well on camera, but you can kind of see it there. But yeah, kind of an interesting deal here at the same time. But yeah, give you a little bit of an idea. I'll post some pictures here down the line and get a better idea of it. But kind of similar to the Rockingham piece we had from back in April, you got these other bits that were just like extra random screws that were kind of put on there to kind of figure all that out. So, yep, we're gonna add this here to the collection in the meantime. Did not want that to just disappear, for sure. So let me park that there. Yeah. So yeah, I hope you get a kick out of that there too. A little something unexpected there. Yeah, I usually don't pick up stuff like that after this here, but I mean, if it's something there that has some extra kind of historical elements to it, and this is certainly unique. I don't think anybody would have anticipated coming into this season that you'd have Ryan Sieg driving the Audubell car there for Sam Mayer, especially a driver that was in the round of 8 going for the playoffs there too. So brought that back out. So that's another another bit from that too. And I got a couple other things for show and tell that I'll share here at the same time. So we'll go from there. Oh, goodness. I didn't think we still have 33 people in here, man. I hope I'm not keeping you guys up too awful late here, but we'll plow ahead here as best we can. I want to give a special shout out to a number of fans that I ran into here. One of the things, it always catches me off guard. And but it's always it's so much fun. I love running into people that are familiar with the videos or this website, or just the Twitter feed itself. It really means a lot to be able to hear from a lot of you guys and share some last place knowledge or just video ideas or any things like that at the same time. A number of people ran into this weekend. If you're watching here as well, a big shout out to Phil and to Ken, to Dale, and to James. And also got to meet Don Trey Graves for the first time from over at 2311 Racing. Saw him after the Cup Series race here as well. So big thanks to all you guys for meeting up with me this week here. I wish I could have been over to the tweet up here today. I didn't see Pockrass post a time for it, so I don't know when exactly it was. So I do apologize if I missed anybody there at that event there. But I'll definitely be doing some more races in 2026. We're still figuring out the schedule for that, and stay tuned, especially to my Twitter feed here for more updates on that, as well as my Patreon, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. You'll have more updates on other races that I'll be attending here at the same time. So, big thank you to all you guys for stopping by, and we had some great conversations there along the way too. So. We got it was a lot of fun with that too. Phoenix always has like a good fan turnout, and there's a lot of people out there that really have a good passion for the sport, and I think that also reflects in, again, this continued discussion about the playoff system and what casualties it's produced and just this weekend alone, and what the future is going to look like from there. I saw when you guys point out that, Cole Custer's a Cup guy, so they probably wouldn't put him in there. That's a point. Yeah, I forgot they have that restriction in the Xfinity series on that, and thankfully they do. Indeed, we did not have a Cup regular. Excuse me. We did not have a Cup regular in the championship battle, and that is how they should do it. This, I guess, dovetails perfectly into the other news announcement that came out midway through this week that NASCAR is considering expanding the involvement of Cup Series drivers in the Xfinity and the Truck Series, which I am not a fan of. I think they should not do that. I think that that would undo a lot of the good that has happened during this Xfinity Series era, where it has developed its own personality. I know that the detractors are going to say, oh, well, it's only 10 races. Oh, well, it's only 8 races. Well, you know, if Kyle Larson does 10 races and Kyle Busch does 10 races and Brad Keselowski does 10 races and Joey Logano does 10 races, well, then pretty soon that's, you know, you're having overlapping schedules, and they're going to be in pretty much every one of those 33 races during the season, you know, except for perhaps the playoff or championship race that they're not allowed in. But, you know, do we really need them to scramble up the standings in, you know, in any format, whether it's a full season championship or not? No, we don't. You know, there's a lot of this rhetoric about we don't want to go backwards. We don't want to take a step back. And they think that the 36 race championship is a step back. No, bringing the Cup guys and expanding their schedule in this is a step back. And unfortunately, it sounds like, unlike a lot of these other rumors, that they're already committed to doing it, which is equally disappointing. And hopefully they figure out some kind of way to, well, I don't know, get visited by 3 ghosts in the middle of the night and maybe just wake up with a fresh perspective. I'm not so sure about that. I sometimes think about that when NASCAR made a series of decisions where it's like, wow, these are actually really good decisions. Let's come up with the fan rewards point system. And it's like, oh, it's like, wow, did this happen on Christmas Eve? I don't know. That's kind of what it felt like to me. Yeah, no, we don't need to go back to that. And especially with a new partner, new brand, ambassador, I guess the terminology is in the O'Reilly, deal here. Yeah, we don't want, I'd rather the O'Reilly series be a continuation of the Xfinity series and not a return to the Nationwide series. That would be depressing, honestly. And, especially for how good the racing has been in this era. My goodness, it's been wonderful to follow. And, you know, something like this, you know, this piece here off Ryan Sieg's car, I probably wouldn't have even paid it much mind, you know, years ago when I was just in the Cup Series and didn't really pay much attention to it. But again, this is just, you know, such an interesting story here with Sieg driving Sam Mayer's car in just this one race. And I'm sure Mayer will be back. I don't believe any of the you know, hypotheses out there that, you know, something's going to change with that. I think he was very solid this year. It's disappointing what happened in Martinsville, but the dude still won Iowa, and I think could have won some, you know, several other races this year too. So hopefully things will kind of turn around on that end at the same time. But yeah, hopefully something comes about that way too. But let's see, what was I going to look at here? Okay, I'm mentioning the Xfinity series, the change in the branding. Oh, yes. I was starting to say also, big thanks to the folks over at Xfinity. We saw the many thanks to the brand itself. Jeremy Clements carrying a logo on the car. Speaking with a member of the crew there, that they actually wanted to get that logo on the skirts, the side skirt on the car, but they couldn't quite get the graphics set up in time. But they had a very nice decal on that really popped on that black and yellow car. Thanking the Xfinity for that. I myself have had mixed reviews with the customer service experience at Xfinity, but I have to say, as a sponsor partner, I thought they handled this, you know, very well in an era that really, again, developed a very interesting sport. It's the most fun I've had following the second tier division there in NASCAR, and with the next gen car, I think it's made people treasure those older cars, you know, even more so than they had before. And, you know, developing what talents they have there. And I don't think finishing 6 laps down to, you know, 3-time Cup Series champion is going to do any of them any good, regardless how much they may think that they want it. But you know, we'll see what becomes of all that. On top of this too, the Xfinity thing, I mean, they didn't have to do this, but I mean, they paid for, they had like free ice cream for all the drivers and the media members and stuff. And they set that up by Zilich's hauler, the Xfinity Series garage, and they had people hang out there. Big thanks to Brad Perez. He came up to me and was like, man, you don't have to pay for that, right? I mean, I'll hook you up there on that. And I appreciated that, but no, I didn't get, I was able to get get mine there just fine, and that was fun. It was incidentally, it was rolled ice cream, which is kind of weird. Never heard of it before. I guess they like skim, like skim something off the top of the ice cream, make it like it's almost like ice cream ho-hos, I guess, or something like that. But it was good, and especially for how hot it was. God, I haven't talked about the weather here. Friday was roasting for Halloween, and it finally eased up a little bit on Saturday, and then today was kind of about the same, maybe a little bit in between. But I was just soaked on Friday, and that was a bit more of a challenge there too. I guess I can go into that. I pretty much, more or less covered what I want to cover on the Xfinity Series race. But the Truck Series race being on Halloween, that was a lot of fun. I went for something subtle. I was considering several things. When we found out that this race is going to be on Halloween, I was kicking around ideas about, a costume to wear, but I didn't want something too complicated or garish or anything like that was going to make it very difficult to still do the job of covering what's happening in the garage area, or like something that's going to have like a lot of accessories, or something get lost or broken or something like that. It's like, okay. But excuse me, one thing I was able to find, there's a website or a company called Retro Rifle. This is not a sponsored segment, by the way. But RetroRifle.com sells shirts that you usually see in famous movies, usually action movies. Some are comedies, I think, as well. But one that immediately drew my eye to it was the shirt that is styled after the one that the character Boris, Alan Cummings' character in the 1995 movie Goldeneye wore, where he's working on like the Death Ray satellites, the EMP satellite there with Sean Bean and stuff in the third act. Spoiler alert from a movie from 1995. But if you remember the video game too, probably a lot of you younger viewers there probably remember more the video game than the movie. And I've seen clips from that too. It looked like he was wearing the same shirt from that too. And they had that. And I was like, oh, that's going to be pretty sick. So I had that with an undershirt on it, and wore some jeans out there. And I don't know. I thought that was pretty fun. It was very subtle. I mean, I don't think anybody recognized it from the movie, but a lot of people got a kick out of it there when I was talking. I was hanging with Brad Perez and Ryan Ellis after practice, and was kind of quizzing them on it. It's like, it's okay. It's a deep cut. Might not recognize it right away. But he did the I am invincible thing, and that was a lot of fun. So what was funny about it, what made that attractive to me as well, is it's actually not too far from my day job, where I kind of do a lot of the computer work there. I mean, don't work on any death rays or anything, of course, but I mean, like, just kind of doing the computer problem solving thing. So I'm probably going to wear it to work too. I think I'll probably get a kick out of it. We have younger clients there, but I don't think there's nothing inappropriate there for a younger audience there. So we'll see how that goes too, especially in the summer. It'll be great for that. But yeah, man, it was so hot on Friday. I think it was just my jeans that just didn't. It was just too many layers to be wearing at the time there, and it was. I was spending a lot more time in the media center, just kind of cooling off there. But at the end of that, we had the Truck Series race there, where Corey Heim did pull off the championship with the lap of the gods there, and the 7-wide pass on the inside of turns 1 and 2 to win his 12th race of the season, and finally get the championship that he had been basically screwed out of at least the last 2 or 3 years. Certainly the one where he had the tangle with Carson Hocevar. But in this one here, and again, very difficult circumstances where Lane Riggs looked very good and Ty Majeski looked very good. But Heim was just too much for him there. And my goodness, the rally he made there at the end, just incredible stuff. And the kind of stuff that, of course, any playoff apologist is going to just look at and be like, okay, well, see, that's what it is. And this would never happen in a 36-race championship or 25-race championship in trucks. This would never happen. And this is going to be, we want to lose this kind of action. It's like, well, how about a series where something like that could happen any week? Like, it didn't require the championship to happen. how about a situation like that? I mean, it's you know, and this coupled with the frustration shared by Matt Crafton, who incidentally was the theme for our the door magnet for this week for the trip down here. Crafton expressing all of his frustration about the current underpowered horsepower for the trucks, that there's not as much racecraft to it, and kind of looking to compete in other series. He definitely took exception to everybody. I think there were even like insiders in the sport that seemed to still conclude that Crafton was going to be retiring from the sport altogether. And no, it's the exact same thing you hear from every driver these days. Nobody ever seems to be retiring outright. Certainly, even since, like, I guess Rusty Wallace was probably the last one to outright do it. But they'll say they're retiring full time. They're going to run a few truck races and then do other things along the way. It's just kind of how that how that all shakes out there. But a lot of frustrations in the Truck Series garage there, and the first and foremost is just that Heim is too good and pulling off the championship, but one well deserved. I mean, he is so thoroughly just. I mean, I didn't think he could get more dominant than he did last year. I mean, last year was really the first year where it felt to me like he had really just kicked into overdrive, and it's like, man, he loses the championship. How is he going to come back from this? Maybe this is something that could help the other driver of the 11 kind of refocus for next year and try it out, even if it's this format, which it sounds like it's not going to be, but again, we'll find out. Yeah, I mean, a tremendous effort for Heim there too. But Caden Honeycutt did a fine job. I mean, I thought he was, except for the switch lanes penalty at the beginning, and that put him a bit of a hole there. But he recovered nicely to get third. Wasn't that far behind the leaders there at the same time. Lane Riggs and Raja Caruth finishing in the top five. So good efforts for them. Caruth trying a little bit of pit strategy at the end to get a good finish there in the championship finale. Jake Garcia, Corey LaJoy, Chandler Smith, Tyler Reif, the ARCA West competitor out there, won on the last lap pass at the Phoenix track, also driving the number 41 for his own respective team a couple of years ago. Kudos to him there on a solid effort there in his Truck Series debut. And then Jack Wood, who finished last in this race last year, finishing the race in the 10th spot for the McAnally effort. So kudos to him. So some good runs throughout. These are the kind of runs that probably get most overlooked compared to anything else, because of course the championship is so central to this current format. But again, some other stories throughout. We saw Stephen Parsons run double duty. He had the TCSBus.com sponsorship for both this and the Xfinity Series, driving for the Joey Gase effort. So a solid performance for him in the 12th spot here on the Truck Series side. Tyler Ankrum cycled out further back, a bit of a desperation move to try to get back into it, but ends up 14th across the line at the checkered flag. Good effort for Caleb Costner, getting a career best finish in Mike Harmon's Truck Series effort, finishing in the 22nd spot there. We'll see if anything keeps going there with the Mike Harmon effort there in the trucks. It'll be interesting to see which teams are coming back and which ones are tried elsewhere. I am so sorry, folks, but I'll plow through here and finish up our show and tell, and that'll probably about do it for today here. Through the rest of the field there, Greg Van Alst, I was surprised to see him on the entry list, but finished in 18th spot there for his own team, so a solid run. Frankie Muniz gets a 19th place finish at his home track, and Clayton Green in 20th. Big thanks to Clayton for speaking with me. I put his quotes in the Truck Series article that I posted on Friday, but I was very curious about what had happened at the team there after his wreck at Martinsville and then parking during the pace laps in that race. Apparently the plan had already been to park for that race and then bring the same truck here to Phoenix to run the full race. It's his parents' company that was the sponsor there on the where did he go? Number 2 truck here for Clayton. But again, solid performance here. Career best 20th place finish. And this not in the same truck from that accident. They're still fixing it, actually. I'm sure they're probably still working on it as we're talking about it right now. But they brought out another truck and had a solid performance with it, so a good recovery for the Josh Riom effort there as well. This in the same race where for the first time in, I believe, 6 years, the last two races of the Truck Series season both have last place finishers that failed to complete a single lap. This time it was Dawson Sutton with his first career last place finish in the Truck Series. Ended up crashing into the outside wall in turns 1 and 2. Bit of a stack up there involving Daniel Hemrick, who also fell out shortly afterwards with the same damage and dropping out of the event there too. Mason Maggio with a fluid leak there, lost the engine, ends up in the 32nd spot. Giovanni Ruggiero and Andre Perez de Lara among the drivers involved in the big pile up there in turns 3 and 4 in front of the main grandstands there, and made quite a mess there at the same time. But again, they couldn't catch Corey Heim there at the checkered flag. Dawson Sutton's last place finish doesn't change anything for the Truck Series one because Clayton Green was the only one of the 3 eligible drivers even entered in the race. Both Norm Benning and Stephen Malazzi were not entered, so that basically ended their Truck Series effort. I did not mention the Xfinity Series NASCAR Championship, which is even more of a toss-up. Basically, it came down to about 5 or 6 different drivers. Anthony Alfredo, Justin Bonsignor, again, big teams, small teams, ones in between. But once Jeb Burton finished in last, who was not among those contenders, that locked Parker Retzlaff into his first NASCAR Xfinity Series championship. And that banner has already been raised at the NASCAR.info page as well. So we have that story there for you guys. Let's see. Brett Cruz had a snapped axle on one of the restarts. Third place qualifier, dropping to 28th at the checkered flag. So a rough day for him. A lot of very battered trucks. The garage area for the truck race filled up very, very quickly with Sutton and Hemrick right at the beginning. Maggio's mechanical issue in the far corner. Ruggiero, Perez, Rhodes, Bailey Curry, Connor Mosack. All of them had very heavily beaten up trucks there that found themselves in the garage there as well. Cool like Cole Butcher and Grant Enfinger. And that kind of leads into the other part of it, about drivers that stay out and try to gamble in this format, knowing that they could potentially steal a win or a good finish. We saw this a bit from the RFK team today in the Cup race with Brad Keselowski and Ryan Preece up there. But again, didn't quite pay off in this case, but just a bit of a different story there too. But all those absurd restarts where he keeps losing the lead and then has to come pit in for tires and then try to drive back up there and then doing it and then just repeating that over and over. It makes you wonder how many more times he needs to do it. It was that one more time. And that ended up being the difference there for Heim there too. So kudos to him for the strong performance there at the same time. 2 red flags totaling 8 minutes and 4 minutes later in the race. So it stretched things out quite a bit. I tried to make it down to pit road there for the finish and was able to kind of check that out at the same time. So that was worth checking out there too. But again, Dawson Sutton, his first career Truck Series last place finish, and again, more of that content in the article. Whoop. Sorry, something was flickering on my screen there for a second. Yep, there's your 7 wide racing. Exactly. Yep, you had all that too. Alrighty. Let's see here. I'm sure I'm missing a ton of stories here from this weekend. Just kind of thinking about the trip in general here. Again, we got down here about, day and a half there from, Wednesday into Thursday. I was glad to be able to get the credentials there beforehand. Incidentally, there did seem to be a bit of confusion behind the scenes of the track as to whether or not you could actually enter the garage area after the race is over with. I had a couple people I needed to meet up with after the Truck Series race on Friday, and I wasn't able to get down there. And indeed, about the same time I did, there were a lot of drivers' families that were also getting turned around. And it's like, well, okay, that seems like that policy has probably gone a little too far. Hopefully, we get some clarification on that because that made things a bit challenging on that end. And then I had a similar conflict there on Saturday there as to the Xfinity Series race. Again, although, was able to catch up with a couple more people there, it's a bit more of again, relaxed atmosphere, and I think it's more of a credit to that than any other rule that's in place there, too. Let's see. Let's see here. Well, goodness. Sorry, just checking a couple messages here in the meantime. Yeah, my goodness. Yeah, all the Dennis. I mean, there's so many posts here about Dennis here still. I mean, just a rough deal here on this. But yeah, Denny Hamlin still says he's in shock. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, But again, that's I think we talked about this last week. I mean, you could do everything right. You could get the fastest car, you could get the best team, you get the best pit stops, you can have the best weather that works out, that makes that all that maximized, and then that extra little element that just that extra element of chaos there can just kind of screw everything up. And then if you have a format that encourages that chaos on top of it, it's a certainty now. And then I mean, how sporting does that become? So that's the other thing. It just needs to get figured out, and hopefully we'll get an answer on that in the not too distant future. But Dawson Sutton's last place finish there again in the Truck Series race, which was only 34 trucks at a short field. We've seen a troubling number of short fields in the Truck Series this year, which used to be kind of the blue chip on the list in terms of DNQs and whatnot. But we've seen a number of teams leave, and with them some of their drivers as well. So that's been kind of the other way to look at that too. Yeah. But Clayton Green is your last car Truck Series champion at the same time. So he prevailed there, and his certificate's been printed. Big thanks to him for speaking with me, though. I mean, besides the truck from Martinsville, we were kind of discussing his family's business that he's involved in, and how that sponsor is getting carried on the number 2 truck there at the same time. And he actually mentioned also, Clayton Green did, that he's going to run a few more truck races next year. And so certainly hopeful that there's going to be some more long distance runs and not just start and park efforts there as well. So that'll be another story to follow in the new season, which I'm sure is going to be here before we know it. It always seems like it's getting closer to just a month every year, but we'll see what the story is. Alrighty. So, let me see. So I'll do super chats here as well. In lieu of doing the trivia, I'm gonna go ahead and get into a little bit more of the show and tell here, and then we'll just wrap up the show here for this evening, because I know it's already getting very, very late, and I really do applaud you 27 viewers that are still watching this here tonight. I still feel like I've only given like a surface analysis of stuff from this weekend, but I feel like I'd be repeating myself if I went into that again. But I hope you guys enjoyed the pictures and everything from this weekend, and there were some very interesting stories along the way, and I hope to generate some other articles off of some of those interviews here too. I want to kind of share a couple things that Last Bro picked up. He just got back from the barn, which is the bar behind the main grandstands that is the hangout there. He's kind of covering the fan angle of things, as he does for me when we go to these races here. And he ended up with some old school or recent merch here as well. Picked up, now they have the camera a little bit closer, you can kind of show it off here a little better. Picked up one of these pins, like kind of a 3-dimensional pin there for the 25th, 2025 running of the race here as well. Picked up this commemorative coin, a solid bronze coin here from last year on that there as well. Let's see, we got the what's funny about this now is, of course, the discussions of the championship format going away. These are almost like mementos, as if kind of looking at this from a few more years down the road of having full season championships. But of course, you got your cup holder here with the championship 4 on the back of it there, and reminiscent there of the decal. I got a poster here from the NASCAR schedule and a couple of plastic shot glasses here, again with the championship 4 on them there. Marketing blitz in full effect here from the track as well. And picked up the program from this, and the program, at least on the back of it there, had an ad for Busch Light there featuring Ross Chastain, and he got both Chris Buescher and Ryan Preece to sign it same day that they were wearing costumes there to impersonate each other over there at the hauler. So a bit of fun there with that too. So yeah, there we go. Got that checked out at the same time. So kudos to Last Bro for picking that up there as well. But yeah, I mean, it was it's an interesting venue. I mean, certainly the points format's in desperate need of being rekindled and bringing back a full season effort, and and trying different championship venues as well. Steve Phelps, in his State of the Sport speech with Steve O'Donnell there back on Friday, seemed to indicate that was going to be a rotating championship venue, kind of similar to what we thought was going to happen with the All-Star race, although that kind of actually has been rotating more than probably most of us would like there these days. So we'll see what the story is going to be there at the same time. Let's see here. But let me get into the super chats. I saw a couple on here. Both these from Mr. Bad Guy. Thank you so much, man. I mean, you didn't have. I do appreciate it. They are not expected, but they are always appreciated here on the super chat. So I'll jump into these here. First of all, Mr. Bad Guy for 1999. Again, thank you very much. This in Nashville 2024 or why overtime has got to go. It hasn't really brought us anything but pointless chaos and time waste. It was really bad to hear the lack of cheering for Love yesterday. The fans are not happy. Yeah, see, exactly. I mean, it's the issue with overtime is certainly, it's certainly a rough deal. Was it a late overtime in Xfinity? I thought that one had a longer run. I mean, your point remains. The possibility, and almost to an extent a certainty of a late race caution and a overtime finish there. Yeah, I mean, there's no, it's just a little bit too much chaos there for sure. And yeah, I mean, mentioning the IndyCar series this year, was another. Well, I was thinking Nashville for the IndyCar series finale is a successful, like, full-time deal, but you mentioning Nashville 2024 with the multiple overtimes in the NASCAR side, yeah, that's another one to look at. I've usually been an apologist for the overtime rules because I'm old enough to remember a time where it seemed like late race cautions came out for everything, and it was always unfortunate, and the race just ended under caution, and then it was over. And I just like I don't believe. Just like it's always tricky to have a driver win at a certain point, I think it's just as difficult to have drivers not race over the top of their heads at the finish of the race, that you're going to probably have late race cautions, and it's a matter of how you want to handle it. Do you want the race to keep going, maybe within a reasonable tolerance, maybe not within, 5 laps of the finish, but maybe within like 3 laps of the finish or something. I don't know. But we'll see if maybe that's something gets kind of revisited there. And yeah, the Nashville race where they had all those overtimes and everybody kept getting spun out, they couldn't line them up properly. Yeah, just a disaster. And the Nashville track's always been pretty hairy, but maybe something further will be down the line there too. Mr. Bad Guy, thank you for your other super chat here for $4.99. You mentioned Atlanta. Do you think an unrestricted race would be a good there, or would it be too dangerous? If partial or unrestricted, we could get a classic super speedway race. Yeah, the big problem I always have with the Atlanta race, besides the fact that Booth always sounds bored about it, even though that's, it's a format that I think that they've probably encouraged. It's kind of a physical manifestation of kind of the culture rot within the sport, where it's all about restarts and tight battles and parity, and it's not about who's putting together the best car and trying to have the event itself be something to accomplish, not just a rubber stamp on the way down a set of lines. But that's I know it's probably going beyond your question there at the same time, but yeah. Do I think it would be good there or too dangerous? I mean, we've had unrestricted races at the Atlanta track before. Certainly not with this current configuration, which seems to be anticipating a super speedway race. But yeah, maybe something that could be experimented with. I think as to how safe it would be kind of hard to tell until you actually try doing it. You could look at the history of the track and be like, well, okay, maybe it wasn't a great idea, or maybe it was. I feel like Homestead is kind of become kind of the story of the wonder of progressive banking, and it's affected the design of a number of these tracks. I don't know, it doesn't seem like Atlanta has fallen entirely victim to that, but I will say this latest facelift to the track there, I'm not a big fan of at the same time. Alrighty. Master Randoms, thank you very much. I appreciate you enjoying the content here too. Who's still up watching on the East Coast? Yeah, what is it like? Oh gosh, I'm not going to do this all night, folks. I'm actually going to wrap this up pretty soon because I can already feel myself falling asleep. I used to do night shift. For some of you long-term visitors to the site may recall, actually some of my first episodes were aired not long before going back to work. So yeah, but I'm finally running out of a little bit of steam here from this. But I think I'll wrap up here. I'll probably do a follow-up show maybe at some point with some other notes from this weekend, or wrapping up the conclusion of our trip as we're heading back again tomorrow and Tuesday. But I think the way I want to leave this off here is just thank you. Just thank you, everybody that followed along with the coverage this weekend. Hope you enjoyed what was happening behind the scenes, even as maddening as things can get. At the front of the field, I think we had some compelling battles among the small teams and people making things really kind of interesting there at the back of the field. And again, I hope that I hope it's something that you guys continue to enjoy in the future, because I'd love to do some more race coverage there at the same time. And big thanks to the folks over at the Phoenix Raceway. We had a bit of confusions there on some of the policies and stuff about photography and so forth, but I think that's going to have a net effect, net positive there for future visits, and I certainly do plan on getting you guys more visual content there at the same time. So I still got my credential on here at the same time. Incidentally, I like the design of this where they have two lanyards hanging on it, because whenever it's just one, it always gets twisted around my headphone wire, and this time I never had that problem. So this kind of like suspender band one there, I think did a better trick there. So we'll add this to the old LASCAR credential archives here, and we'll take it from there. So I don't have any updates too much on new produced videos coming to this channel. I basically just hit a pause on that. We went on this trip, but that'll be one of the things I'll be working on during the off season. And as to our next live stream, I haven't ruled out doing other post-race or like race watch-alongs like we did last year with Daytona and Darlington and some of these classic races from the past, especially with the NASCAR Classics website, archiving such great footage from these races too. We'll look into doing things like that. Again, my Twitter feed at LASCAR on Brock is probably the best way to get that information. So we'll find out if that's going to be the case here as well. My goodness, Mr. Bad Guy, thank you for the other super chat here as well for $4.99. I'll go ahead and jump into this. One thing that annoys me is the amount of people who are okay with a chase format. Let's not give NASCAR a bone. Yeah, exactly. you know, I face the same struggle there with this Mr. Bad Guy. I mean, I've tried to agree, like maybe like the middle point here with a 10 race chase would be kind of not a bad idea, but it's the same problem. It's the same problem. You're gonna have people that, you know, that did the steps really well, but did they race the best? Were they the most competitive? Or is it just that they just understood the rules well enough that things just worked out for them? Yeah, that's something, you know, we need to make sure it's more of the former and not the latter for that there too. So yeah, I think that'll probably about do it here. So I'll tell you what, folks, I'm going to go ahead and break away here. In the meantime, the videos on this channel, feel free to check those out there. And be sure to share them with your friends, share the links as well, so to increase the support here we have for these videos. A big thanks to the folks over, again, the Phoenix Raceway for this opportunity to cover championship weekend. To the drivers and teams I was able to talk to, J.J. Ailey among them, and Carl Long as well over at Garage 66. It was a lot of fun this weekend, a lot of emotions, and a lot of questions still waiting to be answered, certainly from all of this. But we'll certainly pick that up along the way. I know I only touched on the lawsuit, which is certainly the other big story from this week. I still want to kind of hold off and see where the wind is blowing on that before I go more into detail on that. So stay tuned on that. I'll have more information on the next wild feed here. Wild feed, my God, I am falling asleep. Okay, I don't even know where that came from. I was thinking satellite feeds. It's like, yeah, no, we're doing streaming here, folks. Okay. Yeah, I already read your super chat, right, Mr. Bad Guy? Yeah, the one thing that annoys you about, yeah, they're okay with the chase format. Let's not give NASCAR a bone. Yeah, totally agree, Mr. Bad Guy. And thank you again for the super chat with $4.99. Yeah, I think at this point, compromise is over. It's about looking into the best interest of the sport. Simple, straightforward championship format, maybe with more points to the winner. That's about all you need to do. And I think the current point format may even work pretty well with this too. So, yeah, we'll have much more to talk about too, and I'm sure the next stream I'll probably have some other stuff that's going to occur to me from this too. So, in the meantime, yeah, the drawing for the magnet. I have some other prizes here. I picked up some hero cards for the giveaway. We'll cover all that in due course. At the end of the season, I like to space things out a little bit. So, you know, next week or so, we'll get all that together and stay tuned on that. So in the meantime, my Twitter feed is at LastCarOnBrock. Patreon is patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. And, of course, the website is lastcar.info. I am definitely not going to finish that article tonight. I'm going to look at it with fresh eyes tomorrow and get that posted for you guys. We'll have that, too. And I have some interviews that I need to work on as well. I didn't even talk about Kevin Conway in here and his interview. And we'll cover that at the same time. So, have a good evening, folks. I hope I haven't made you guys too tired for work or school or whatever your deal is for tomorrow. But we'll be traveling back to LastCar headquarters, and we'll have some more news for you in the near future. So thank you so much, everyone, for staying up late with me. There's a lot to be concerned about with the championship format, but I feel a better day is coming. And we'll talk more about the lawsuit as more of that develops. I will leave by just saying that, you know I said before that it didn't seem like there was any there, but I'll tell you what, with this discovery that's come up this week, there's definitely something there. And I'll elaborate more on that next time we discuss this as well. So have a great evening, folks. Thank you for following along this weekend. And I'll talk to you all again real soon. So take care, everyone.